Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the inaugural I'm Not Crazy Alliance podcast, a podcast that involves me, your host, who shall remain anonymous, exposing, spilling tea, as I'm told people call on Twitter, and analyzing stereotypes and stigma seen in movies, television, and books. Okay, so for this first episode, I'm going to have a chat for the next few minutes or so about some key movies that are super guilty of just promoting this really unfortunate stereotype that has befallen people such as myself who do have mental health issues. For some background, I have depression. I'm not going to get super specific with it just because even though I'm remaining anonymous, it's still the stigma is still something I'm myself trying to deal with. Because there are times where I'm totally fine with it, with my situation, but there are other times where I just don't. So what you need to know about me is I have depression and severe social anxiety. So the other reason why I'm remaining anonymous. Okay, so pretty much the key points that I want to talk about involve two of my favorite movies, which is super unfortunate that they're perpetuating the stereotype. One way more than the other, but they kind of both deal with the same issue, so I'm grouping them together. They being Silver Linings Playbook, which is a fantastic movie, and Benny and June, which stars Johnny Depp in it, in case you needed some context. So these two films, unfortunately, do not reflect in the slightest mental health properly. Silver Linings Playbook, it does it way better, but they do have don't get me wrong, they try their hardest. I know people with a bipolar disorder, and that it's pretty close to the reality of it, but it's by the end, both movies have the same problem. True love does not cure mental health. Unfortunately, if it did, more people would be falling in love. But it does not, and just by in these two films showing these characters at their worst by themselves and then fall in love and then they're magically better doesn't help anyone. It just sort of makes someone who maybe is going through a mental health crisis, who is in love with somebody but still going through this crisis, be like, well, maybe I don't love them, or maybe I'm just broken, and it's just hurting them more than anything else. Because I hate having to say this, but your problems still exist whether you're in love or not. It just is. I'm not a cynic. I promise I'm not. But unfortunately, there's no correlation. It can inspire you to get better. I can't deny that. I know someone's going to be like, well, what about this? You're right. No, you're right. It can inspire you, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be better and stay better and have a happy ending. Not that you can't have a happy ending, but you know what I mean. You're not going to... They didn't win a dance. They were in a dance competition. Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence in Silver Linings Playbook. That one's one of my favorite movies. And it really does have pretty good rep for mental health in it. But it is the fact that they both seem to be a lot better by the end of the movie because they just have each other in their lives that I have a problem with. Because just because you find someone who has the same issues as you, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna make a positive outcome, unfortunately. Okay, so for next topic, this podcast would not be complete if I did not address the major I love how I put this in my notes, the giant murder-sized elephant in the room. I'm very clever. Having a mental health problem in no way makes you a crazy murderer. Let's just get that out of the way. In fact, in most cases, it's the complete and utter opposite. If anything, you want to be around less people. That doesn't mean you want to, kill people. Especially, I don't want to sound super... Okay, I'm going to talk about Shane Dawson in a later episode, I promise, with the whole Jake Paul series. But sociopaths, yeah, that's a topic I really want to talk about. But not everyone's mental health is a sociopath or a psychopath. There's little to no confrontation with most of us, or at least, you know what I mean. In fact, 3 to 5% of people with mental health problems actually are the ones that get assaulted. So it's not necessarily, oh, I'm crazy or something's wrong with me, stab, stab, stab. It's something's wrong with me. People notice. They're gonna stab me. So movies, see, this is why I did this podcast, because I'm a huge film buff. I really, truly, truly am. But I also truly know that as I was going through one of the hardest times of my life, where I actually had to sit down and reflect on my mental health, it was movies that didn't star, but were about serial killers, that really made me scared of myself. I know what you're gonna say. You have depression and social anxiety. Why would you kill someone? I mean, I don't know. Some of these people are very antisocial. For example, Norman Bates, anyone? I don't know if any of you have seen Bates Motel. Excellent show. Or Psycho itself, just a fantastic movie. But that main character doesn't talk much, isn't very good with people, pretty much had the same mannerisms and creepiness as most people would describe me of having when I was at my worst. Sure, I didn't I didn't dress up as my mother or feel possessed by her anyway. But yeah, you know, it's things like that are very harming to someone going through that, and who see themselves more as a Norman Bates than as anyone else. Other examples: Silence of the Lambs, Seven, and Fight Club. Oh, I love Fight Club, but oh, does that just not work? So, in case you don't know, Fight Club, the movie, completely changed from how it was in the book. Completely. The twist ending, everyone knows in the movie that, basically... Ooh, okay. So, Ed Norton and Brad Pitt are the main characters, right? Turns out they were both the same person the entire time, and Brad Pitt was just a figment of Ed Norton's imagination. But, I mean, you can hallucinate. Hallucination's fine. I get that. You can have multiple personality disorder, dissociative identity disorder, DIDs. You know, I'm gonna spoil it for earlier. We're gonna be talking about DIDs because I think you know what's coming up. But my God, you're not gonna. The things that happened in this movie, he had his alternate personality, Tyler Durden, blow up a building, beat up poor Jared Leto to a pulp. No, Ed Norton did that. My mistake. Ed Norton did that, but you know, that's still kind of, yeah, it just promotes violence and perpetuates a stereotype that antisocial, sad people with very bad issues around other people hurt people, which is so not the case. But oh my God. My third topic today. I'm so excited. So this is a man. I'm going to center this around a man. The man. The director. The legend himself. M. Night Shyamalan. I just have this entire thing in my notes where it's just a giant bullet point that says M. Night Shyamalan. Not even like several movies with like bullet points underneath like I've been doing with all these. But like it's just M. Night Shyamalan and then tons of paragraphs afterwards. Because this man, oof, he perpetuates the stereotype. And it's really sad because I don't know if he's trying to help it or not. Because on one hand, I think he had... I'll get there. Okay, let's focus on this one at a time. So, the two main movies that I'm going to be talking about that Mr. Shyamalan did that kind of promoted the stigma are The Visit and Split. The latter, Split, being an awesome movie. I know it hurts. It hurts a lot of people, and a lot of people boycotted it. But it was admittedly a well-made movie. More research obviously could have been done, but, I think they could have done worse. It's mostly The Visit that I want to talk about, and then I'm going to get to Glass another time, because Glass literally has part of it take place in a mental health hospital with my queen Sarah Paulson in there, who I adore, but I digress. Okay, so just the way Mr. Shyamalan presents mental health in these films is truly atrocious, and completely incorrect on so many levels. It's baffling. So let's start with The Visit, which, spoiler warning, I'm going to spoil both of these films. I should have mentioned that before, but especially with the Fight Club thing. So apologies, but spoiler for The Visit. So if you don't know, if you haven't seen it, even though it's been out for years, it's basically about these two kids who go off with their grandparents for a little bit while their mom is on a cruise ship. End of the movie, they find out those grandparents aren't really their grandparents. The fake grandparents are actually escaped mental kind of murdering. They basically escaped from a mental hospital. It's so ridiculous, especially when you write this out. Like, when you're saying it, you're like, oh yeah. I mean, it's harmful looking back now, but it's just like, sorry, I'm making myself laugh too much. So basically the main problem with these two people is it's said that they have schizophrenia. Something I've noticed in most films that want to do something with mental health is they just go, oh, schizophrenia. They have schizophrenia. That's not what schizophrenia is. They don't kill people, dude. It's not gonna, especially in this movie. So basically these two fake grandparents concoct this plot, this complete murder plot, but and they're highly intelligent and just super terrible people, but people with schizophrenia, from my understanding with the people I've talked to, do have a difficult time focusing on one thing for a very long time, which would make it nearly impossible for them to plan out this thorough murder plot. They can never hatch it. Something so elaborate. I mean, they stuck the granddaughter in the oven for a little bit. She didn't die, but that's beside the point. Now, don't get me wrong. People with schizophrenia are still capable people, completely capable. But it's undeniable that focusing on one thing for a long period of time without changing what you're thinking is not something I've heard of, if I'm being frank. It's just not. It's unfortunate. They could have, M. Night Shyamalan could have gone a million different ways with this whole fake grandparents plot, but he was just like, oh, schizophrenia. No, dude. Never mind. I was just, okay. Now, Mr. Shyamalan. Split. Let's talk about Split. I like I said, I do like Split a lot. I just hate that it alienates an entire group of people with dissociative identity disorder. DIDs. I mean, he was right in the way that DIDs and different identities can change how a person carries himself. Like, let's say that the host or the main person is right-handed. An alter they could be left-handed, could have a different accent, things like that. Totally normal. So good job, James McAvoy, for pulling off the different mannerisms of each personality just perfectly. But it's unheard of, truly unheard of, that someone with DIDs had a personality that was an inhuman, beast-like monster who tears people in half and eats innocent girls. Yeah, most people with DIDs never have a personality that practices cannibalism and climbs on the ceiling. Shocking, I know. It's just crazy. Because I understand I truly do. What M. Night Shyamalan was trying to do with this, it's an interesting concept, and he was somewhat respectful, but I feel like there could have been, I don't know how, but there should have been another way around this. I don't feel like the beast, as the altar is called, should have been so human-like. I mean, you could say, oh, he had big eyes, sharp teeth, yada yada, but like, I don't know, that's not DIDS, and I don't want people to think that that can happen to someone with DIDS. I truly don't. So again, I'm gonna have to say, it perpetuates the stereotype. It's not good. It's just, I hate that it does that, considering how well made of a film that is. And I completely understand why people with DIDS were so offended and boycotted it. There's this one YouTube channel I really like called Multiplicity in Me. It is about a woman who has, I believe, 5 different altars. Don't quote me on that. It's a really good channel, and it's really fascinating. All the altars' personalities and like what they see and what they feel on a daily basis. It's really fascinating. I totally recommend it. But she even, and all of her altars, boycotted this film, and I understand why, to put that lightly. He also made it seem super imaginary and made up, which is not something you want from a topic in a mental health problem that's so not shown in the mainstream. You know, it's very unfortunate. So I think I'm going to call it for this first inaugural episode of the Inca podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, I don't want to tell you to subscribe. I'm not going to tell you to hit the bell icon or whatever, because this isn't something that I want people or believe people need regularly. This is just meant to be a little glimmer of hope that someone else is there and someone else is noticing these little things that maybe are affecting your mood. But if you do want to become an Inca warrior, I know it's super clever. I'm very clever. That's what I'm going to call the few people that do subscribe. Go for it. I'm going to be here hopefully for a while, because this is something I really care about. Because as someone who has not so great history with mental health, I just want to help people today who maybe need just a little help and need someone there who doesn't necessarily go through the same things they go through, but you know, I'm just trying to be there for you, dude. So this has been the Inca podcast with Anonymous. I'll see you next time.